The night Amara Sullivan turned 17, she learned that a person could break without making a sound. She sat on the edge of her narrow bed, listening to the argument erupt downstairs. Her mother's trembling voice, her stepfather's slurred shouting, a crash, something shattering. The usual symphony of her home life. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the house wasn't filled with anger. It was filled with finality. A closing door. A dead end. Amara clutched the small notebook in her lap, the one where she wrote lyrics, poems, pieces of herself she never said aloud. Music was the only place she felt whole. Her voice was the only thing that had ever belonged to her. And even that, her mother wanted her to hide. "Don't dream too big," she always said. "People like us don't get discovered." But Amara had been born dreaming. She couldn't help it. Music lived in her bones. She heard melodies in passing sirens, harmonies in rustling leaves, rhythms and footsteps on concrete. She was made of sound. Tonight, though, she felt like silence. When the final crash came, something heavy hitting the wall, Amara stood. Her legs trembled, but she walked out of her room anyway. Her mother was in the kitchen, crying, holding her cheek. Her stepfather swayed near the counter, beer bottle in hand. "Your daughter thinks she's some kind of star," he spat. "Always scribbling her stupid songs. Tell her to get real." Amara exhaled slowly. "You're drunk." He turned toward her, eyes bloodshot, mouth twisting into a sneer. "You want to sing? Go sing your ass out on the street, 'cause you ain't staying here freeloading." "Leave her alone," her mother begged. But he pushed past the woman and pointed straight at Amara. "You're nobody," he said. "A nobody with a pretty voice doesn't become a somebody. That's not how life works." His words cut, but not as deeply as his next sentence. "And even if you did become something, nobody would care." That was when something inside Amara cracked. Not loudly, not violently, but like a slow fracture spreading through glass. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She simply turned, walked upstairs, packed a small bag, and left the house without another word. She walked into the cold Atlanta night with nothing but her notebook, her voice, and the certainty that if she stayed, she would die. Not physically, but in every way that mattered. She had no money, no friends, no safety net. But she had a dream big enough to shame the stars. Amara found shelter at a community center where she traded cleaning shifts for a cot in a shared room. She worked 2 jobs, one at a diner, one at a laundromat, and auditioned anywhere she could. Open mics, bar nights, church events. At her first open mic, she stood on the stage with shaking hands. The crowd wasn't hostile. They simply didn't care. People talked over her, scrolled through their phones, clinked glasses. But when she began to sing, something remarkable happened. A few heads lifted. The room quieted. Her voice, raw, soulful, heavy with emotion, rippled across the bar. For the first time in her life, she saw the power she held. Afterward, people clapped. They actually clapped. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Yet life didn't get easier. One night, walking home after a shift, a group of girls cornered her. Jealous types. Girls from her old neighborhood, angry about her voice, about her leaving, about everything she represented. They pulled her hair, punched her, kicked her when she fell. "Think you somebody?" One jeered. "You ain't nobody." As they left her bleeding on the sidewalk, she stared up at the night sky, breathless, aching, humiliated. "Maybe I am nobody," she thought. But the universe answered with a whisper she didn't expect. "No, you are becoming." A week later, bruised but unbroken, she walked into a dim little cafe hosting another open mic. The owner begged her to perform. She'd filled in once before, and he loved her voice. Reluctantly, she agreed. As she sang, a man in a gray coat at the back of the room froze mid-sip. Slowly, he put his coffee down. When she finished, he approached her. "You don't know me," he said, "but I know talent when I hear it." His name was Langston Reeves, a former music producer known for discovering underground artists before burning out and disappearing from the industry years ago. "You sound like someone who's suffered," he said. "People don't sing with that kind of soul unless they've lived through hell." Amara didn't deny it. "Let me record you," he offered. She hesitated. She'd been tricked before, manipulated, used, but something in his eyes, tired, sincere, made her take a leap. "Okay," she whispered. Langston introduced her to a small recording studio, a dusty, outdated basement with faded sound panels. But when Amara stepped inside, she felt something shift, like she was crossing a line between who she was and who she was meant to become. They recorded a simple demo, just her voice and a piano. The first time Langston listened to the playback, he swore softly. "This," he said, pointing at her heart, "is going to save lives." But the industry wasn't welcoming. Labels rejected her. She didn't have the look, didn't have the following, didn't have the connections, didn't have the resources. One executive even said, "Your voice is too emotional. Listeners don't want to feel that much." Another said, "There's no market for another dark-skinned soul singer." She cried that night, not because they rejected her, but because they said what she feared most. "You are too much, too emotional, too intense, too loud, too soft, too ambitious, too black, too everything." But Langston placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we don't need them," he said. "We'll do it ourselves." One night, Amara recorded a rough version of a song she'd written about her mother. The loneliness of needing love from someone who could never give it. Langston uploaded it anonymously to a music forum. By morning, it had 400,000 views. By the next week, 5.2 million. Comments flooded in. "Who is this woman? Her voice is haunting. She sings like she survived 1,000 storms." People tagged influencers, producers, radio hosts. Within a month, Amara had become a whispered name, an urban legend, a voice without a face. Labels that had rejected her begged for meetings, but she said no. She chose independence. She chose ownership. She chose herself. Langston booked a tiny venue, just 120 seats. They expected maybe 30 people to show up. Instead, when Amara peeked through the curtain, the line wrapped around the block. Phones out, posters with her name, fans humming the notes of her viral song. Her breath caught. "This is really happening," she whispered. "You made it happen," Langston corrected. When she stepped onto the stage, she froze for a moment. Not out of fear, but out of awe. A room full of strangers waited for her. Her. She sang like the world was ending. People cried, people held hands. People closed their eyes and let her voice wash over them. After her final note, the audience erupted into applause that shook the walls. The next day, headlines exploded. "The unknown girl with the voice of a goddess. The rise of Amara Sullivan. The woman who can break you with a single note." Her life was no longer small. Her world was no longer dark. She was no longer nobody. She was becoming unstoppable. The morning after her first sold-out show, Amara woke up on Langston's old studio couch. Her throat ached in a good way. Her body felt heavy with exhaustion, but her chest felt light. For the first time in years, maybe ever, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Notifications, mentions, clips of last night's performance. Someone had posted a video of her singing her viral song in the tiny venue. Overnight, it had crossed 1 million views. Amara stared at the screen, barely breathing. Langston walked in with 2 coffees. "You're trending," he said simply, a ghost of a smile on his lips. She looked up at him, eyes wide. "This doesn't feel real." "It is," he replied. "And it's about to get very real, very fast." He wasn't wrong. Her email flooded with interview requests. Small blogs at first, then bigger ones. Podcast hosts, local radio, a late-night show in Atlanta. Her name was on people's lips. Amara Sullivan, the girl with the voice that hurts in the best way. The woman who sings like she's been shattered and glued back together. Her first instinct was to call her mother, to say, "See? I'm not crazy. I made something of myself." Instead, she stared at the contact in her phone for a long time, then locked the screen. Her mother hadn't called once. Not when she left. Not when she was homeless. Not when she started singing publicly. If her mother wanted to know how she was, she could do what the rest of the world did. Search her name. A week later, after rehearsal, she stepped outside the studio to get some air. A car pulled up. Old, dent in the front. One headlight taped. The driver's door opened and a familiar figure stepped out. Her stepfather. For a moment, her lungs forgot how to work. He looked smaller than she remembered. Grayer. But his eyes, the arrogance, the entitlement, hadn't changed. "Well, look at you," he said, giving her a slow once-over. Little Songbird made it out. Amara folded her arms over her chest. "What do you want?" He laughed. "Straight to the point, huh?" She said nothing. He stepped closer. "I saw you on some video," he said. "People going crazy over you. Didn't think you'd actually pull it off?" "It wasn't for you to think about," she replied, voice flat. His mouth twisted. "You got money now?" She blinked. There it was. Not an apology. Not a sliver of regret. Not, "I'm sorry I threw you out." Only, "Do you have something I can take?" "I'm working," she said. "That's all you need to know." He scoffed. "You owe me, you know." She almost laughed. "Owe you what?" "I kept a roof over your head, fed you, took care of your mom. You wouldn't be here without me." Her hands shook. "You're right," she said softly. "If you hadn't treated me like trash, I might never have left. I'd still be there, small, quiet, dying on the inside." His jaw tightened. "Don't disrespect me." "Then don't stand here pretending you built me," she said. His face hardened. "You'll come home eventually," he sneered. "When this little music phase dries up, when they move on to the next girl. You'll remember who your real family is." She stepped back. "My real family," she said quietly, "is anyone who didn't try to kill my spirit." They stared at each other. A war with no soldiers left. Only ashes. He snorted. "You're still nobody," he said, voice low and venomous. "Sing all you want. You'll always be that scared little girl in my house." Amara felt something inside her solidify. Not ice. Not stone. Steel. "I may have been scared," she said, "but I was never yours." He rolled his eyes, got back in the car, and drove away. She watched him leave. He didn't know it, but that was the last time he would ever see her in person. By the time the world really knew who Amara was, he would only recognize her from billboards and from the sick twist in his gut every time he realized. He could have said, "I'm proud of you," instead of, "You're nobody." But he hadn't. And that would be his own private punishment forever. Success brought attention. Attention brought vultures, managers, agents, labels, brand strategists. They circled like hawks, each claiming to know what was best for her. "You need a new image. You need to dye your hair. You need to lose weight. You need more followers. You should collab with this rapper. You should make your sound more upbeat." Everyone wanted to change her. Everyone except Langston. "Do not sign anything without reading it 3 times," he warned. "And don't let them turn your pain into their product unless you get ownership." One particular manager, Clara Bishop, stood out. Elegant, sharp, successful. She had big clients, big numbers, big ideas. At their first meeting, she smiled at Amara like she'd already won. "You're a once-in-a-generation voice," Clara said. "But voices alone don't win. Narratives win. Stories, branding, strategy." Amara frowned. "I don't want to be a brand. I want to be an artist. Clara smiled knowingly. In this world, you don't get to be one without the other. Langston didn't trust her. I've seen this type before, he muttered. They build you up fast so they can own your fall. And they will build a fall for you if it makes money. But Amara, she was tired. Tired of rejection. Tired of scraping by. Tired of living on hope and cheap coffee. Clara offered certainty, opportunities, big stages. I can get you in front of millions, Clara said. Now, not in 10 years. Amara signed. Within 6 months under Clara's management, Amara's life turned into a blur. Bigger venues, tour dates, press tours, TV interviews. Her first official single, Ashes Don't Die, charted on multiple platforms. People started using it on social media videos. It soundtracked breakups, recoveries, late-night drives. A prominent playlist added her. Then another. Her face began appearing on digital billboards in Atlanta, then in New York. Sometimes she would drive past one and stare up at her own image. A beautiful, strong, airbrushed version of herself. The girl the world was falling in love with. Somewhere along the way, she realized the world loved her voice. But they didn't know her. Not the girl who slept on a shelter cot. Not the girl who tasted blood in her mouth while girls kicked her on the pavement. Not the girl who walked out of a house where her own mother didn't protect her. They knew the packaged version. The story Clara let them see. You're inspirational, interviewers would say. You came from nothing. They smiled, nodded, waited for the feel-good soundbite. She wanted to say, I came from less than nothing. I came from a home that chewed me up and spit me out. But there wasn't time for that. They had segments to fill, commercial breaks to get to. So she smiled and said, I'm grateful. Success demanded things she never agreed to give. Sleep disappeared first, then privacy, then peace. She was on the road constantly. Different city every night, different bed, different backstage room. She watched other people clap for her, cry for her, sing her lyrics back to her. But when she returned to hotel rooms, it was always just her and the four walls. Langston tried to slow things down. She's burning out, he told Clara. She needs rest, not more promo. Clara rolled her eyes. Do you want her to be a local legend with a nice cult following? She snapped. Or a global phenomenon? Langston glared. I want her alive. Clara smiled tightly. She'll be fine. This is what she wanted. But it wasn't. Amara didn't dream of contracts. She dreamed of singing in a way that healed. Now, most days she felt like she was bleeding instead. The breaking point came on a night that was supposed to be her biggest victory. Her first televised award show performance. She stood backstage in a long black gown, hair styled in wild curls, makeup flawless. Her name buzzed across social media. Her fans, calling themselves the Phoenixes, trended a hashtag with her name and flame emojis. The show's producer approached her with a clipboard. Change of plans, he said briskly. We're cutting your ballad. It's too slow. You'll do the up-tempo version with the dance break. Amara blinked. What? No, that's not what I rehearsed. Network notes, he replied. People want hype, not sob stories. That song is about my life, she said slowly. He shrugged. Tonight it's about ratings. Clara stepped in. Just do it, she hissed under her breath. This is too big to fight over one arrangement. Amara felt something sick roll through her stomach. She'd compromised before. Clothes, makeup, stage design. But the music? The core of who she was? Her heart pounded. If I change the song, she said quietly, then I'm just noise. Clara's eyes hardened. You're being ungrateful. If I sing it your way, she whispered, I'd be untruthful. Silence. The producer checked his watch impatiently. Make a decision, he snapped. We go live in 8 minutes. Everyone stared at her. Stagehands, makeup artists, backup singers. Clara leaned closer, voice low and cold. "You walk away from this," she said, "and you will never be invited back." There it is, Amara thought. The test. Not of her talent, of her obedience. Her stepfather's voice echoed from years ago. "You're nobody. A nobody with a pretty voice doesn't become a somebody." Her hands shook. All this time, she'd been fighting to prove him wrong. But if becoming somebody meant killing the truth in her songs, what was the point? She inhaled deeply. Then she did the scariest thing she'd ever done in her life. She said no. "I'm not singing the up-tempo version," she said. The room went painfully still. The producer's jaw dropped. Clara's face turned to stone. "You're making a huge mistake," Clara spat. "Maybe," Amara replied, "but I'd rather lose a show than lose myself." The producer threw his hands in the air. "Forget it," he snapped. "We'll cut her performance, fill the slot with a comedy skit." He walked away. Clara rounded on her. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" "Yes," Amara said. "I refuse to turn my life into background music." Clara's expression contorted with rage. "Enjoy your little moral victory," she said. "Because from this moment on, I'm done fighting for you." Amara's chest tightened. "What does that mean?" "It means," Clara said smoothly, "I no longer represent you. You're on your own." She walked away, heels clicking sharply against the floor, each step a severed tie. Within an hour, Amara's performance was officially canceled. Within a day, bloggers began whispering, "Diva behavior. Difficult to work with. Unprofessional." Within a week, promoters pulled out of deals. The industry turned. The very doors she had fought so hard to get through slammed shut in her face. All because she refused to lip-sync her soul for better ratings. The calls slowed. The offers dried up. People who once flooded her DMs with compliments now went silent. Some even unfollowed her. Fans moved to the next shiny voice. Langston stayed. "I told you," he said softly, handing her a cup of tea. "They love you until you say no." She sat on the studio couch, the same couch she'd woken up on after her first viral show months before. Now it felt like she'd lived a lifetime between those 2 mornings. "Did I ruin everything?" she whispered. Langston shook his head. "You protected the one thing they can't fabricate." "What's that?" "Your integrity." She laughed bitterly. "Integrity doesn't pay rent." "No," Langston said, "but it keeps you alive long enough to figure out how to." She stared at him. "I'm tired," she said. He nodded. "I know." She wiped her eyes. "I'm not done, though." His lips lifted. "I know that, too." But the world thought she was, which is why when Amara disappeared from the spotlight for nearly a year, people assumed she had failed, that the industry had eaten her alive, that she was just another name on a long list of almosts. They had no idea that in that silence, in that darkness, in that apparent defeat, she was writing the album that would burn her name into history. Amara didn't announce her break. She didn't post a goodbye. She simply stopped. Stopped performing. Stopped promoting. Stopped showing up at events. Stopped answering emails. Her phone went silent. Her name faded from headlines like dust swept from a table. And for the first time in her adult life, she felt invisible. She moved into a small one-bedroom apartment on the east side of Atlanta. Quiet, older, with peeling paint and creaking pipes. Nothing like the industry apartments Clara once pushed her to rent. The first night she sat on the floor, surrounded by unpacked boxes, listening to the hum of an old refrigerator. The silence was deafening. Without Clara, without tours, without interviews, without lights. She realized something terrifying. She didn't know who she was when she wasn't performing. Her voice, her greatest gift, felt like a stranger in her throat. Some mornings she didn't sing at all. Some days she forgot to eat. Some nights, she slept on the couch because the bed felt too big, too quiet. The world had moved on. Her name stopped trending. The fake friends vanished. Collaborations disappeared. She went from the woman of the moment to the woman nobody mentioned anymore. One afternoon, she walked into a grocery store and heard one of her early demo songs playing faintly in the background. It took her a moment to realize it was her own voice. Nobody else noticed. Nobody recognized her. She stood in the aisle, hands shaking around a shopping basket. "That's me," she whispered to no one. And for the first time since the downfall, tears fell. Not because she wasn't famous anymore, because she wasn't sure she mattered. 3 months into her silence, there was a knock at her door. She almost didn't open it. But when she did, she froze. It was her mother, older than she remembered. Thinner, eyes tired, carrying a guilt that had been ignored for years. "Amara," her mother whispered. "Baby, I saw you on TV months ago, and then I didn't see you anymore. I got scared." Amara said nothing. Her mother wrung her hands. "I want to make things right. I know I wasn't the mother you needed." A bitter laugh escaped Amara. "Needed?" she said. "You didn't even try to protect me." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "I was weak. I chose the wrong man, and I let him poison our home. But what he said that night, that you were nobody. Amara," I wanted to scream, because I knew he was wrong. I always knew. Amara swallowed. "Then why didn't you say it?" Her mother cried openly now. "Because I didn't know how to love someone who shined brighter than me." Silence crashed between them. Amara didn't forgive her. Not instantly. Maybe not ever fully. But she let her in. Not as a mother, but as a broken woman trying to heal. And for the first time in her life, Amara realized, forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about freeing the space they once occupied. One cold winter morning, Langston showed up at her apartment carrying coffee and his old laptop. "You ready to get up yet?" Amara rubbed her eyes. "I don't know." He sat beside her. "You think this is the first time a label blacklisted an artist for having a spine? You think you're the first who refused to sell their soul and paid the price?" She said nothing. Langston opened a folder labeled Amara, the real album. Inside were dozens of recordings, raw vocals, unfinished demos, lyrics she'd written on napkins, on her arm, on the backs of receipts. "You've already written your comeback," he said. "You just haven't recorded it." Amara looked at him. "I'm scared." "I know," he replied softly. "But legends don't rise without fear. They rise through it. It started small. 10 minutes of vocal warm-ups one morning. A recorded harmony another afternoon. A verse whispered into her phone late at night. Then one day, without planning to, she sang. Really sang. From the gut. From the bruises. From the places she never allowed herself to look. Langston, listening through the studio glass, felt chills rise up his arms. "That's the voice," he whispered. "The one they tried to bury." Amara didn't smile. Her voice wasn't beautiful because it was smooth. It was beautiful because it hurt. Because it told the truth. One night, after hours of wrestling with a melody, Amara wrote a new song. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't catchy. It wasn't for radios. It was the most honest thing she'd ever written. A song about her stepfather's cruelty, her mother's silence, Clara's betrayal, the industry that used her, the loneliness of fame, the pain of being forgotten, the power of rising anyway. When she finished recording it, she didn't plan to release it. It felt too raw, too vulnerable, too sacred. But Langston uploaded it anonymously, with her permission, on a small independent music platform. No marketing, no PR, just her truth. And in 48 hours, it exploded. The internet did not treat this song like entertainment. They treated it like a confession. Clips spread on TikTok. People crying. People holding their chests. People saying, "Who is this woman?" This voice feels like it's telling my story. I haven't cried like this in years. Millions listened. Millions shared. But the most powerful reaction came from people who had no idea they were connected to her. Artists, mothers, women in abusive homes, people burned by the industry, people who lost their voice, people who found it again. Someone wrote, "She doesn't sing notes. She sings wounds." Another, "This song didn't go viral. It resurrected itself." Labels reached out again, but this time Amara ignored them. She didn't need approval. She didn't need permission. The world wanted her truth, not Clara's polished version of her. Clara expected to move on easily, but when Amara's anonymous release went viral, reporters connected the dots. Suddenly, Clara's name resurfaced, not in praise, but in accusations. You forced her to change her sound? You punished her for saying no? You dropped the most gifted artist of the decade? Her reputation cracked. Clients left. Sponsors pulled out. People whispered, she tried to bury the wrong woman. Clara watched helplessly as the industry she once controlled turned its back on her. The same way she once turned her back on Amara. Justice doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it arrives in silence, in the absence of opportunities. Clara Bishop became a ghost in the world she once ruled, and Amara didn't have to lift a finger. Months later, Amara appeared on a massive billboard for a global streaming platform. Her new album, Reborn in Fire, was about to drop independently. Her stepfather saw that billboard while driving. He slammed on the brakes. There she was, the girl he told would be nobody, the girl he threw out, the girl he thought would crawl back. A superstar, a rising legend, a face the world now recognized. He sat in the car, staring up at the billboard with a hollowed stomach. Regret does not knock politely. It crashes in like a storm. He rolled down the window. Other cars honked behind him. But he didn't move. He already knew. He would spend the rest of his life telling people, I knew her, I raised her, she lived in my house. But it would never erase the truth. He didn't raise her. He tried to break her, and she rose in spite of him. When Amara stepped on stage for her first independent concert, she expected a small crowd. Instead, the arena was sold out. People held signs, from ashes to art. You saved me. Your voice is home. We waited for you. Born of fire. Her chest tightened. This wasn't fame. This was belonging. This was connection. This was truth. When she walked to the microphone, her hands shook, not from fear, but from awe. Thousands of phones lit up at once, like stars bowing to her. She closed her eyes, breathed, then sang the opening note, a single sound. And the crowd went silent, not out of boredom, out of reverence. They weren't here because the industry pushed her. They were here because she pulled them. She wasn't a star created by marketing. She was a phoenix forged by pain. Between songs, she spoke softly. They said I was nobody. They tried to silence me. But the truth is, those who fear your voice will always try to quiet it. She looked into the sea of faces, but they can't destroy what they didn't build. You are allowed to rise. You are allowed to return. You are allowed to be reborn as many times as it takes. The crowd erupted. Some cried. Some screamed. Some lifted their hands like they were in church. Amara smiled through tears. This was not a comeback. This was a coronation. Amara's independent concert wasn't supposed to make headlines, but it did. Clips of her performance flooded social media within hours. Her trembling opening note. The entire crowd falling silent. Fans crying, holding their hearts. The arena singing her lyrics back to her. People captioned it. This is what real music feels like. The industry tried to bury her. She grew roots instead. In 2 days, her name trended worldwide. In 1 week, her album Reborn in Fire became the highest streamed independent debut of the decade. And within a month, She received an invitation she never expected. The email subject line read, Grammy Performance Inquiry, Urgent. Amara stared at the screen in disbelief. She read it twice, 3 times. They weren't inviting her as a guest. They were inviting her to perform. Live, on stage, global broadcast. Langston looked over her shoulder. Well, he said softly. Are you going? Amara swallowed. After what happened last time. That was their world, Langston replied. This time they're entering yours. She exhaled deeply. Then, yes, I'm going. The announcement broke the internet. Amara Sullivan returns to the Grammy stage. The Phoenix is back. The industry can't kill what it didn't create. For days, journalists wrote think pieces. Fans rejoiced. Labels panicked. Executives whispered in fear about what she might say or sing. And far away, sitting at her spotless white desk, Clara Bishop watched the news with a clenched jaw. She tried to pretend she didn't care, but jealousy hollowed her out from the inside. Because deep down, she knew. She didn't discover Amara. She tried to destroy her, and failed. On the night of the Grammys, Amara stepped onto the stage wearing a simple black gown. No diamonds, no extravagant styling, no theatrics. Just her. A single spotlight cut through the darkness, illuminating her like a flame in a long tunnel. The audience hushed. The orchestra waited. Amara took a breath and began with the softest, gentlest note she had ever sung. It felt like a wound opening. It felt like healing pouring out. Her voice carried years of abuse, isolation, homelessness, humiliation, silencing, rising, becoming. Her lyrics told her life, raw, unapologetic, unfiltered. They said I was nothing, so I learned to breathe fire from every no they threw at me. Camera operators froze. Producers forgot their notes. Celebrities stared wide-eyed. The internet exploded. Halfway through the song, she lifted her chin and added a line that wasn't in the original recording. You cannot break what was born of flames. The entire arena rose to its feet. Thunderous applause. People crying openly. Artists clutching their chests. Amara didn't bow. She simply looked into the lights and whispered, I'm still here. And it was enough. Backstage, reporters crowded around her. Fans reached for photos. Producers begged for meetings. But when the crowd parted, Amara froze. Her mother stood there. She was crying. Softly. Quietly. The way people cry when they finally see the adult their child has become. You were breathtaking, her mother whispered. Amara didn't speak. Her mother stepped closer. I don't deserve to say this, but I am proud of you. Deeply, truly proud. The apology that Amara had waited her whole life to hear did not come instantly. Instead, her mother said, I failed you. You deserved better than the love I knew how to give. Amara exhaled. For the first time, her heart didn't tighten when she looked at the woman who raised her. For the first time, she saw her mother not as a villain, but as someone who had been broken long before Amara was born. She didn't hug her, but she nodded. And that small gesture felt bigger than forgiveness. As Amara walked toward her dressing room, she sensed someone else standing in the shadows. Clara. Her once flawless posture was shaken. Her eyes were tired. Her confidence cracked. Amara, she said. Amara didn't stop walking, but Clara hurried closer. Please, Clara whispered. I shouldn't have pushed you the way I did. You were right, and I was wrong. Amara turned slowly. Why are you here? She asked softly. Clara swallowed. Because the whole world is celebrating you, and I wanted to say congratulations. The air tightened. Clara's voice trembled. And to apologize. Amara studied her. Once she would have sought validation from women like Clara. Once she would have needed their approval. Not anymore. You didn't break me, Amara said softly. You just showed me how strong I was. Clara's eyes watered. I lost everything, she said. Amara nodded once. That was your lesson, she replied. Then she walked past Clara without looking back. Some people deserve forgiveness. Some people deserve distance. Clara deserved both and neither. She deserved to watch Amara shine from the darkness she created herself. That night, Amara didn't win a Grammy. She didn't need to. Her performance became the most watched in Grammy history, more than the award itself. Radio stations played her song nonstop. Talk shows analyzed her lyrics. Documentaries began production. Her fan base doubled in a week. Reporters labeled her the Phoenix of Soul, the woman who sang her way out of hell, the new voice of a generation. But when Amara got home that night, she didn't celebrate. She sat on her balcony with a blanket around her shoulders, sipping tea, listening to the quiet Atlanta night. Langston stepped outside. You did it, he said. Amara smiled faintly. Did I? He sat beside her. You didn't win fame, he said. You won freedom. She closed her eyes. For the first time since she was 17, she felt safe. She felt full. She felt reborn. A year later, Amara released a book of poetry titled Ashes Do Not Lie. It became a bestseller. Her tours sold out across continents. Her mother watched proudly from the front row. Her stepfather watched from his living room, filled with regret. Clara watched from afar, realizing she had touched history, and lost it. And Amara? Amara finally moved into the house she always dreamed of. Small, warm, covered in sunlight. With a music room filled with plants, candles, and a grand piano she bought with her first independent check. Every morning, she sat at the piano and whispered, "Thank you." Not to the world, not to the industry, to the girl she used to be. The broken one, the invisible one, the homeless one, the hurt one, the silent one. Because that girl survived long enough to become a legend. And legends don't fade. They rise, again and again and again.